It's happening already partly because of the movement of the planet Pluto, which archetypally represents the unconscious mind and the reality behind perceived reality. What Pluto does, or assists in doing, and of course we don't have time to get into the whole tangent of the inner zodiac concept, so I'll just use the traditional astrological jargon. And Pluto represents the reality behind perceived reality. What it also does, as I said, it's connected to Shiva's energy. It's a destructive, not destructive, but deconstructive force. And one of the things that gets deconstructed is people's ideas of reality. That leads us to the next point, which is if you can do that, if you can in fact transcend your ideas of reality, then yes, there's a chance, you see, that the purification process will increase, that the inner guides will assist in your process of personal evolution, and that will help open sensory inputs to the brain. I mean, these specialists have even said that there's 37 sensory inputs to the brain, not 5. So we've got something there that we're not using, obviously, and some people that we might call clairvoyants or prophets are using. So there's no limit to the possibilities at all. And I believe that the deconstructive energy that's happening now, this sort of deconstructive season that we're going through, one of the positive aspects of that is that it is going to mean, a cleansing of the ways, and also the opening of the doors of perception for those who are ready to let go of the jive and let go of the lie, which is nothing but a burden that needs to be let go anyway.
We've got to go for a break now, and we'll get back to that point in a moment. So, once again, if you'd like to text in your questions or comments for Michael Tsarion or Jeff Stray, please do so now. Text the word EDGE, then a space, and then your message to 87778, and we'll see you very soon. Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guests tonight, Jeff Stray and Michael Tsarion. Now, Michael, you were just talking about our inner guides, which is very fascinating to me. So if you can just expand on that a little bit, I'd be grateful.
Well, again, tying into these different countdown dates, and also the move toward 2012 and the various changes that are taking place, this is basically, what is happening in a nutshell is that the individual, as they start to lose faith in these political tyrants and in the religious tyrannies, and giving their power away and constantly submitting to external authorities, what's the flip side of that? Is that hopefully the inner voice of truth, which is latent within everybody, that scientists already know about, whether they admit it or not is another question. But these are the inner guides that are spoken of in the metaphysical tradition. There's a potential that these, people will start being moved from that, whether they call it the instincts or whether they call it the intuitions, or, a still small voice, whether they perceive it as inside their heads or as some sort of outer voice guiding them. Again, these are all individual complexions to one concept. Of course, then we have another group of people who are going to be deeply threatened by the approach of that truth or that light, just in exactly the same way that people, balk and so cover their eyes when a physical light, a bright light, is put in them. So this is what we're dealing with now. We're in a part where the paths divide somewhat into the people who just can't get a handle on what's going on and want to stay with the old status quo, the old rotten status quo, and that's inevitable. And then we have other people, you see, who can get with this gig and who respond better to this. And even though they see these things that are happening that one group of people might think is very negative, very threatening, very, challenging, another group can see the same changes as needed, as adventurous. It's all about how you relate to it. It's all about, like I said, Joseph Campbell said, find your bliss, find the still point, attach to nothing, let go. It's okay to have a winter season, and both from the I Ching point of view, both from these different calendrical point of views, both from the astrological point of view. As a cycle or an aeon or an age comes to a close, that's what you have. You have a purgation cycle. In alchemy, it's known as putrefactio, mortificatio. It's the return to the earth. It's the a sort of like Odin hanging on the tree. It's a sort of a willful sacrifice of all that you are and all that you believe, so that something greater, will emerge from that. That was the message of the pharaohs. That was the message, as one of your earlier questioners were talking about, that is in the Bible if you actually read it with intelligent eyes and not prejudicial, biased eyes. If you read all the scriptures, they're talking about this. Enoch, the very first words of Enoch is him being visited by his guides. One of the oldest books in the world. They may talk about those, or they may have translated those texts into saying angelos, or the messengers, or whatever term. But ultimately, you see, the prophet, the man of wisdom, is always protected. He's always under the wings of protection of his own guide. This is the Holy Spirit. This is the selfhood that is now, I believe, starting to awaken in the world. It's been threatening for a lot of people, but it's going to be very, very, good news for a lot of people who've been on this path for a long time.
Okay, I've got a question here from Ian in North Wales. He says, is this possibly why the Illuminati are so quickly trying to control the majority, maybe in fear of what it might mean for them?
Well, when you get into the question of what these guys fear and don't fear, that's a tremendously interesting subject. They do not fear a horde of misinformed, uneloquent individuals. So let's not think that a bunch of placard wavers with very, very thin grasp of who they are and what weapons they're using, they're not in fear of that at all. What they are in fear of is a small, intelligent group of people who are up to speed on who they are and the kind of devices and designs that they use. And so this then is the problem. So I would say that they are armed up, to be making sure that these great teachers like the Ezra Pounds of the world are suppressed, that their work does not get out. I mean, that goes right across the board, even into technology with Raymond Royal Rife and Wilhelm Reich and Nikola Tesla and people like that. So yeah, absolutely, there's a certain fear there. There is a certain fear there.
Jeff wants to come in here.
Yeah, I just wondered if Michael heard this story that there's one of the triads, the Chinese triads, that they've basically given a death threat to all the Illuminati. They've got a list of all their names. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, but I thought that it was just another bunch of disinformation. I find it highly unlikely, since I believe personally that every single one of the terrorist organizations and these secret bodies are controlled from a central source. I mean, that's not to say that they don't have dynastic rivalries, but I would take stuff like that with a pinch of salt. I don't think the triads would stand a chance if they came up against the Illuminati. That would be a lovely wrestling match to watch. It would go for about half a round, and then there'd be no more triads anymore.